Yes, we are still out here, outside the Hall of Justice County City Building. They are still going strong.
Yeah, Dom's inside, Dario's inside.
Okay.
That's it for those that come to mind right out. Dario and Dom.
Cool. Good. They're still going strong. Yes, Honda is with the people. Yes, this energy is next level. They have been out here all day. Somebody said, are there still a lot of people that are going to speak to the council? I hope they truly keep them there all night. I believe you can still sign up to speak. Okay, there's a couple unfamiliar faces, so I think some people came in. point out, all of these people out here are allies. They're all allies out here right now, making all this noise and chanting Black Lives Matter. They are really true allies out here for the people. There's 7 people left to go in and testify in front of City Council.
You can't hear everything that's happening out there from inside. We can bring it in there.
I can't hear myself. Did Kieran leave? Did you go?
No, well, I don't think he left.
I don't see his car.
Yeah, he hasn't been parked out front all night though.
Oh.
I think he might have left.
Well, I'm asking because he brought this.
Oh, he did. Yeah, I don't know, son.
countervailing force. You can observe it outside the doors of this chamber today. You are seeing people practicing mutual aid. You're seeing people that in the void that you have left, in the void of leadership, honest leadership, not the kind of authoritarian stance that goes for leadership these days, or the kowtowing to a tyrant like a Ricketts that our mayor is obviously willing to do. Outside of that, in that void, you're seeing people practicing treatment. You're seeing people feeding each other. You're seeing people taking care of each other's health and mental health. So I invite you to be a part of that. and use what power you have now to be on the right side of history. Because what's going to happen is you're going to be rendered obsolete. Your cowardice will render you obsolete. And you will be supplanted by the good in people. Not the fear, not the rising, the climbing of the social ladder, not the hoarding of wealth and power, but you're going to see that distributed. You're going to see people taking care of each other on a grand scale. And you all are welcome to participate in that. Black Lives what?
No! Steve, before the next time, what are you doing, sir? What are you doing? I need your eyes on the people that speak. She's taking all the notes, so you have no reason to be looking down like you're not paying attention. Pay attention, give us the respect that we're giving you, all right? The same thing. We know it's late.
So we could continue the public hearing.
It's a public hearing. All right, cool. But pay attention. You getting paid, right? We not. So here are our voices. Thank you. Thank you.
Up next is Celine Meyer. And on deck, if you're still here, I'm calling back a name that was skipped earlier because she was not present, Emily Wilson.
Emily spoke.
She did, oh,
She spoke.
okay. So Celine Meyer.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Celine Meyer, spelled C-E-L-I-N-E-M-A-Y-E-R. I am here presented to you today as a concerned Lincoln citizen. I urge you, before I present my case, to look at us as fellow servants to our communities, and as human beings that are concerned for our friends, our families, our community, and most importantly, Black lives. Housing is unaffordable for 46% of Lincolnites that rent at all income levels. That is 21,655 Lincoln households that are cost burdened by their housing. Indeed, 85% of extremely low income families in Lincoln spend more than 1/3 of their income on rent. Lincoln must address these issues before they become worse. And we urge Lincoln's leadership to put our city at the forefront of national housing reform. Failure to do so will likely result in increased homelessness, especially when Black and brown lives are a high-risk population subject to homelessness. This valuable money can be redirected to help our communities substantially. We believe tax increment finance reform is one way to address housing affordability and racial equity in our city. TIF is a public subsidy given to developers to help finance redeveloped projects. Because these projects are publicly subsidized, taxpayers should get more than market rate development in exchange when TIF is used for housing development. TIF can be reformed by ensuring that housing developments subsidized by TIF dollars either 1, set aside a percentage of affordable units to be rented out market below rate to low-income tenants at a rate proportional to their income. 2, contribute money to an affordable housing fund that our cities uses for the development of affordable housing. Or 3, build affordable units in an off-site development. Quality affordable housing should be a basic human right in the city of Lincoln. I hope you will reconsider how the city might collaborate to ensure folks stay housed and that hundreds of thousands of dollars in development happening through TIF do more than repair pipes, but ensure that all Lincolnites have an opportunity to benefit. We need you to vote to hold the budget. Black lives what?
Matter.
Thank you.
Next up is Marcus. No.
Thank you for taking the time to hear. I'm here to encourage us to vote no to the budget particularly as it relates to the issue of policing and the addition of funds towards the police. I do want to make it clear that my concern here is for Black lives. I do want to make it clear that my concern here is for Black lives. That is my investment, both as a person and as I am speaking here to you tonight. But my mother taught me that the best way to get people to care about the things that you care about is to talk to them about the things that they care about. So I'm here to talk about policing. And I'm here to talk about policing specifically as it regards to helping LPD, Lincoln Police Department, to do the best job that they possibly can do. Because it has become clear over the course of the past few weeks as decisions have been made and have been made in opposition to what has been requested by the protesters that there are people who are invested in helping the police. I do pastor a church. Thank you, Councilperson Jolie. I do pastor a church. I pastor at Allen Chapel. And in 1 week, I have a lot of responsibilities. We run a food pantry and serve food every Sunday, and I help to oversee that. We visit the prisons. We are currently doing a $30,000 renovation of our church that I'm overseeing. I have to counsel church members. A few weeks ago, I had to do a wedding, a backyard COVID wedding on Sunday, while also getting domestic violence calls to come to the situation on Saturday. I have a myriad amount of issues to deal with on any particular week, not to mention our weekend services where I have to preach. As I sit and think about my job and the wide ways in which I am spread and the different things that I'm called to do as a pastor, sometimes I'm frustrated because I serve a team of volunteers, and sometimes I wish I could outsource some of my job responsibilities to other people so that I could focus on what was really important, which is the service that's coming on the weekends. If I could give some of my job away, I could do more by doing less. Does that make sense? When we talk about reallocating the budget from the Lincoln Police Department into other areas, what we are encouraging us to do is to help the police department. And the way to help them is to require them to do less things. We, like me, are asking police departments to show up in ways and to do things that they simply are not trained to do. And police, like me, get called for a myriad of issues like routine traffic stops, but also domestic violence situations and mental health situations. And if we reinvest our funds into creating the type of society where police officers don't have to interact so much with people in the ways that they do now, it actually helps the department to do better what it is they do. And it also keeps us safer in what it is that we do. So I am calling for the defunding of the police department and the use of those funds in other departments so that our community as a whole can be better. Thank you for your time.
Up next, Jeffrey Holt. On deck is Brian Moore.
How y'all doing today? I'm angry. It's my passion. Y'all was put up here because somebody believes in y'all to make the right decision. That's why I'm always sitting up here. We are all humans. And my job here today, Black Lives Matter, of course. And I believe that when we say defunding the police, when I say defunding the police, it means putting it back into the teachers. The teachers are the ones that's teaching the youth to come up and be leaders, just like y'all up here. I think defunding the police should go to the teachers. Cops shouldn't make as much as they make. I think the budget is outrageous. I think it should go into a lot of other areas that would help the community grow. The starting pay for teachers is like 20K. Some people make that doing other things. Teachers putting in 65 to 80 hours a week away from their families. We ask them the importance to help the kids, grow into something that they believe in, and how they're going to believe it is helping the teachers get more resources, get more resources for the kids. Teachers shouldn't have to pay for their supplies to teach the leaders that's coming up in this world. I had a good teacher in college, my science teacher, her name was Andrea Walters. She always taught us to do research, to question everything, to put our heart, our passion into what we believe in. All of these people here are my family. All of these people are fighting for the same thing. We are all in this community because we want to see the beautiful thing that Lincoln can be. But unfortunately, we have people against that, against the good that we can put, that we can be the example of. We don't have to follow the rest of America. We are here letting our voices be heard to y'all because we believe in y'all too. But if we can't believe in y'all, we will vote you out, for sure. Let that be known. We will vote you out because power to the people. People have the power, and people make the country. We're just asking y'all to rethink this budget. Thank you. Black Lives Matter.
Up next, Brian.
Some serious energy.
On deck, Jay Hoffer.
Okay, so now I'm gonna take 3 minutes and make this rather quick for all of you. Thank you for what you've done today. The one thing I need to say, even though some of you have heard my story earlier, I understand that, and I can promise you if we do not halt the budget, I myself and many of my people will protest outside these doors during the daytime instead of at nighttime when we were attacked and brutalized. We have been very kind with this. We have gotten away from the public eye. But now we will come into the public eye if this does not happen. Thank you for listening. Oh yeah, Black Lives.
Up next, Jay Hoffer. On deck, Arden. Jay Hoffaker. Is Jay present?
Can I just say something from back here? We don't get paid to come here, but we've been here for 12 hours today. Some of us have court cases this morning at 10 a.m. and we're still here, and and we don't get compensated for any of this because that's our job as American people. So please remind yourselves of that while you sit here.
Good evening. Thank you for being present and for listening to the concerns of the public. I am here to also testify on halting the budget. Yes. And reallocating the funds instead to other areas that I think are much more necessary and helpful than to the police force. officers aren't expected to provide grief counseling to these children, or play the role of doctor or nurse, and monitor for symptoms in hundreds of kids every single day. They aren't expected to fill the numerous roles that teachers fill for their students, and are expected to fill those roles at a high standard. In fact, teachers are held at a much higher standard than police officers are, as is evident by the unnecessary show of unnecessary force at the demonstrations, where protesters were assaulted. Teachers also have to go through years of classes and certifications before they are even, considered the minimum qualifications for teaching. And they are usually hundred thousands of dollars in debt. And they get paid 44 grand a year. And you take out everything that they paid, but in their classroom. And on top of that, teachers don't get to just leave behind their job after they walk out for the day. They go home, they still worry about the kids. They think about the kids' home situations. They try to figure out what the best ways to approach each child's learning style. They have to do lesson plans, they have to grade papers, and oftentimes they are basically working full-time and only being paid for the hours that they are at the school on the clock. Thank you for your time. Black Lives what?
Up next, Arden Kinney. Up next is Arden Kinney. If there's anyone here left, on deck is Ryan Lebenz. If anyone else is here to testify, please step in the chambers.
Hello, I'm Arden Kinney, I'm a Lincoln resident, and I also urge the council members to halt this Lincoln City budget by voting against it. The increased funding for the Lincoln Police Department is poorly thought through and will not solve the police brutality problem. Additionally, the cops grant that we're taking is not free money. The Lincoln taxpayers who are not in support of it are going to have to match it. We do not need more police funding at this time. That is not the way to solve this problem. It's only a band-aid solution on a wider, deeper issue. We're going to need to look at deep structural changes to the way we think of policing and the way we think of security if we want to end this plague on our particularly Black, brown, and indigenous friends, family, and neighbors. We need to look more at preventing issues rather than trying to cover them up or even trying to address them after they've already happened isn't as good as preventing these things in the first place. The places that we need more funding are things like education and housing. I do oppose cutting funding, not increasing it for the Lincoln Police Department. That doesn't mean that we're just going to have endless, uncontrolled crime everywhere all the time. We are going to have to change the way that we think of security. Now to the part that no one else can tell quite like I can. One way that security might look is more like the nursing staff who work with psychiatric patients and work in nursing homes. And I know because I was one. I was a nurse's aide, which doesn't sound very impressive. It's It's kind of the dirty work of the nursing home. It's a very hard physical and emotionally taxing job. I did it as a teenager. I worked 12-hour night shifts, and I did not do any murder. I didn't even do a little murder. It was hard. It was very physical, difficult work. And I had to be able to handle people who were confused, people who were belligerent, as sometimes police are thrown into situations where people are confused or belligerent. But we do not need soldiers. We need nurses. We need psychologists. Because dementia is terrifying. It is a horrible thing to have to watch even from the outside. And I had people I worked 3 p.m. to 3:30 a.m., so I had people at 3:10 in the morning who were confused, who had no idea who they were, who I was, who were yelling, who were swinging on me, and I didn't attack them. I wasn't trained to use force until people did what I wanted. I was trained as a nurse's aide, I was trained as nursing staff to figure out what the problem was and then de-escalate it. That is what security can look like. Trying to put security money into police, into force, into guns, into tanks, it will not solve this problem. And if I, as a teenager, a scared 19-year-old who had 20 pounds less muscle, can handle those situations without attacking anybody, we ought to be able to find some people who can handle it better than some of our police have in this country. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for listening.
My name is Ryan. Thank you all for your time. Just kind of reiterate what everyone's already said. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Every second, someone's contracting the virus now, and it is just absurd that we're here risking our lives to ask you all to invest in life and not murder. Not murder at the hands of the police, not murder by military overseas. Where we're at and what we're approaching can be different, and we can learn from each other. My mom was like a kindergarten teacher for 35 years. My stepdad was like a cop. And I learned from both of them in ways. And I think going forward, we can look at each other too. I think a lot of the crowd here is around the same age as me, possibly younger than you all. But throughout my life, I've always tried to learn from it. I hope you do that as well. Black Lives What?
Hi, my name is Ellie Blowbaum. I live in the New South neighborhood. I've been coming to these public comment sections for the past month or two. I've never spoken. I'm speaking here today to ask that you halt the budget. A couple weeks ago, I was here for another public comment section, and my roommate was speaking with the mayor about this budget, and one of the things that she was saying to my roommate about the decisions that she made in this budget was that, oh, it's hard times because of coronavirus. And I think that even though money might be tight because of the current pandemic, I think it's very irresponsible to funnel this money towards the police when the police have shown that they have been very irresponsible in dealing with precautions relating to the pandemic. I've spoken with friends who were arrested on the night of the protests and have
reported back to me that none of the police officers they'd come into contact with during that time being placed in jail for peacefully protesting were wearing masks. And that just shows negligence and just a lack of care for our community. And I think that this money in such hard times should be going towards things that benefit our community in these times of crisis, like public libraries. Because of the pandemic, a lot of places with, say, free Wi-Fi are shut down. So people in their homes that don't have access to this service, who would normally rely on businesses like, say, Starbucks or other coffee shops, can rely on this in public libraries. And this is something like incredibly important to apply for unemployment, to apply for jobs, to look for housing. And I can't imagine how giving this money to the police department is more beneficial than funding our libraries. That's what I have to say. Black Lives Matter.
Is there anyone else here who cheers or would like to come forward and testify?
I'm Hannah Bates. I also live in the Lincoln Year South. I'm Ellie's roommate. I just want to talk about the history of police. So, this is from an article from Time Magazine. I'm pretty much just going to quote it word for word as much as I can. It would be easy to think that the police officer is a figure who has existed since the beginning of civilization. That's the idea on display in the proclamation from President John F. Kennedy on the dedication of the week of May 15th as National Police Week, in which he noted that law enforcement officers have been protecting Americans since the nation's birth. In fact, the U.S. police force is a relatively modern invention sparked by changing notions of public order driven in turn by economics and politics, according to Gary Potter, a crime historian at Eastern Kentucky University. Policing in colonial America had been very informal, based on a for-profit, privately funded system that employed people part-time. Towns also commonly relied on a night watch in which volunteers signed up for a certain day and time, mostly to look out for fellow colonists engaging in prostitution or gambling. Boston started one in 1636, New York followed in 1658, and Philadelphia created one in 1700. But that system wasn't very efficient, because the watchmen often slept and drank while on duty, and there were people who were put on duty as a form of punishment. Night watch officers were supervised by constables, but that wasn't exactly a highly sought-after job either. Early policemen didn't want to wear badges because these guys had bad reputations to begin with, and they didn't want to be identified as people that other people didn't like, says Potter. When localities tried compulsory service, if you were rich enough, you paid someone to do it for you, ironically, a criminal or a community thug. As the nation grew, however, different regions made use of different policing systems. In cities, increasing urbanization rendered the night watch system completely useless as communities got too big. The first publicly funded organized police force with officers on duty full-time was created in Boston in 1838. Boston was a large shipping commercial center, and businesses had been hiring people to protect their property and safeguard the transport of goods from the port of Boston to other places, says Potter. These merchants came up with a way to save money by transferring to the cost of maintaining a police force to citizens, arguing that it was for the collective good. In the South, however, the economics that drove the creation of police forces were centered not on the protection of shipping interests, but on the preservation of slavery system. Some of the primary policing institutions there were the slave patrols, tasked with chasing down runaways and preventing slave results. Potter says, the first formal slave patrol had been created in Carolina colonies in 1704. During the Civil War, the military became the primary form of law enforcement in the South, but during Reconstruction, many local sheriffs functioned in a way analogous to earlier slave patrols, enforcing segregation in the disenfranchisement of freed slaves. In general, throughout the 19th century and beyond, the definition of public order, that which the police officer was charged with maintaining, depended on whom was asked. Businessmen in the late 19th century had both connections to politicians and an image of the kinds of people most likely to go on strike and disrupt their workforce. Basically, the rest of this is about how that's pretty much what our police force has always revolved around. Maintaining slavery, essentially. Just defund, you know, defund the police. And I know my time is up, so I'll just say, Black Lives.
You were up here earlier.
I just need some people to speak twice, and I'm just.
No, not that I know.
No, we
Not
have, you
on-
guys, seriously guys, I'm the last speaker and I'm trying to tell you that, so
We
just.
have other speakers online that
We
we
have
have
a
to
lot
hear
of
from.
mine.
We have 36 more people. 36 more people, that's what I was coming up here to ask, how many more people do you have? 36.
Yeah, so we want to give them an opportunity to speak.
I don't know, I just want to talk to you and ask questions, that's all.
Thank you.
And 36 people.
Cross-check the records with some of the people that actually testified.
Yes, she has.
Okay, perfect, okay.
Okay, first up is Ingrid Kirst. On deck is Kylan Pinkelman.
Good evening. Thank you so much for allowing this testimony to be by Zoom. I'm Ingrid Hurst, and I really appreciate listening to all the testifiers this evening. It's really encouraging to see so many young leaders coming out of this movement. Our city budget is a moral document, and it shows what we as a community value. Here in Lincoln, it shows we value public safety quite highly. Public safety is important. But what does it really mean to keep the public safe? And are we doing that in the most cost-effective manner? Before this year, as a lifelong Lincolnite, I really never considered what public safety meant. It sounded like something I wanted, but I'm now investigating where that money goes and whether it can be used in a way that would really improve everyone's quality of life. The police department is just one tiny part of safety for our community. Affordable housing, public health, a good education system, and much more go into keeping our community safe by supporting all of its residents. The more you invest in all the services that support all community residents, the less crime you'll have and fewer police officers you will need. Across the country, all the city fund police are being heard loud and clear. And some are dismissing this as a foolish idea to eliminate the police, but in reality, it's a demand to look closely at what we ask the police to do. We can then truly evaluate whether it's the best use of their skill and expertise. Over time, we've expected police officers to solve every problem from small to large, and it's not considered whether that's the best option. Even police officers will tell you that they have to perform many tasks outside their area of expertise. And this increase in funding for police over time has come at the same time we've been decreasing funding for social services. Many people talked about a lot of issues tonight, and I just want to mention the ones that I know best, our local nonprofits. I talked to an executive director today who helps people facing homelessness, and she's overwhelmed trying to keep up with their demand. The pandemic has caused increased challenges for many people, and our city nonprofits are struggling to keep up. We have organizations that are providing mental health services, nonprofits that are treating drug addictions. We have organizations mentoring youth and other nonprofits addressing domestic and sexual violence. These are the organizations keeping Lincoln safe, and they need more funding from local government to do this important work for all of us. I think it's time to have a community-wide discussion to really explore all the areas of what creates public safety in Lincoln. In the meantime,
Next is Kylan Pinkelman. On deck is Robert Stewart. Kylan?
Good evening, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
I want to thank you for being here and again for allowing participation via the webinar. I do ask that you indefinitely continue providing this as an option for participation as it increases accessibility for many people. I am speaking tonight to echo a lot of what you've already heard this evening. I am here to stand in solidarity with all Black, Indigenous, and people of color who are targeted and treated unfairly by police in Lincoln and throughout the United States. I demand that you halt the budget and begin the long process of divesting from police. Our community needs support, not policing. I have worked in the nonprofit world for over 10 years now. I've worked with people in some of the most underrepresented communities. In 2018, working in Nebraska, I was laid off from my job due to budget cuts. And that was at the state level. My role was to help 18-year-olds who were at risk of homelessness transition into independent living, and all of the kids I was working with were on probation. So they were right before the age of 19 becoming adults where those charges stick. And I was laid off because the program, which was created to reduce recidivism, was cut. In my current position, I have to tell people they have to be placed on an 8-year wait list to receive necessary services and supports. A lot of supports that people need to just get by day to day. So I think you can see how frustrating it is to tell families that their loved ones can't receive the support they need to thrive while there's thousands of dollars needed in police budget. I see firsthand what needs people have that are going unmet, and policing is not one of them. Linking police with social programs does little to create safe space for its involvement in programs and ultimately causes more harm than good. The fact is, policing was created and implemented in this country to enforce and maintain white supremacy. We all have to unlearn these ideals that are deeply rooted in our country, our structures, and our individual being. Please halt this budget and take the time needed to ensure that every step forward is a step away from white supremacy. Black and Indigenous leaders are standing in front of you, telling you what they need to feel safe and welcome in Lincoln, and your actions directly betray their lived experiences. Thank you for your time. All power to the people. Black Lives Matter.
Up next is Robert Stewart. On deck is Vic Clafter. Robert? Robert? I'm going to move on to Vic Clafter. Robert, I'll call you again here shortly. Vic? Oh, wait, is that Robert?
Yes, it's me.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello, Robert.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. Wow. So good to see everybody again. I have been attending these meetings now, the past 5 or 6 of them, one of them in person and the rest online here, which I really appreciate that option, and would like to second continuing to keep it forever. And just as the eyewitness to everything that's going on, early on, the first meeting where there were public comments, there was a whole batch of blue sticker boys and girls, advocating for the police, and then a whole group of everyone else advocating for defunding the police. The next public comments, there was another batch of the cops are God sorts, and still the same, if not more, of the other side. And then it dwindled for the blue gang. but these numbers have continued to stay strong, to get stronger, to grow bigger. Their voices are continuing to speak to defunding the police, to supporting Black lives. And demographically speaking, the majority of people here tonight skew a lot younger. Whereas all the cop lovers are, they were advancing somewhat in years. So we need to think about Lincoln and the future of Lincoln. And who are we building the future for? Is it the people, the young people, the wide, vast swath of different kinds of people that are speaking to that? And I think one telling detail is if you look at both sides and you ask them to imagine a world without police, the white property owners, please don't raise my taxes groups say, oh, it's a world of destruction and decay and rampage and ravaging. And you ask the other side what that world looks like, and they say it's a world where we're nurturing each other. It's a world where we're helping each other, where we're meeting needs in the ways that those needs need to be met. Whose voice do we really want to lead us into the future? Please think about that when you decide to halt the budget, do not match the grant, ACAP, land back, Black Lives Matter, thank you, sweet dreams everybody.
Up next is Vic Clafter. On deck, Ella Duran.
Hello. Thank you, City Council members, and for continuing to provide the virtual access to the meetings. I think it is very important, and also call for that to be continued. Councilmember Benny Shope had shared on a Facebook Live a couple of weeks ago. I was glad to see him doing it. It's important to do that kind of outreach and putting faces to the names of who city council members are. And when y'all are making choices such as this one, that it's important to not just have a couple strong voices, but to have a large swath of the city in order to represent really what the city is wanting, the people in the city. And the previous testifier was kind of pointing at this, but there's a swath here. There's definitely a swath here, and I want to say though, part of my job is to help. My professional job is to help people understand and get to this point where they are speaking to you in these processes, whether it's at the actual council chambers or via the virtual access. And yet, part of the whole reason why it's so important that council members are in and of their community, why we don't hire people from Omaha to be council members for Lincoln, is that there are so many other statements. There's so much more testimony to every single one of you beyond these four walls or this virtual access. And that testimony comes not just in the form of also other statements and conversation that's still structured in a very white respectability politics way. And it's not just protesting either. It's a incarceration, to poverty to incarceration, often caused by eviction, and then promoted by eviction. That is also testimony for defunding the police. That is also. And because you all are community members and people, just as the same as you are a council member, you get into that conversation, and I consider that as part of just formal statements. I think that calls it clear to at least all the budget for now, re-examine, and ultimately defund to then provide affordable housing as was pointed to low income and very low income folks. 40 to 60%, or the range of how many people are possible. The eviction connection leads towards those detrimental and very harmful, dangerous, and life-threatening interactions with police. That's all I can say. Black Lives Matter.
Up next is Ella Caitlin Dillon. Ella?
That's fine. You can leave, Cody. That's fine.
I thought it was going to be over until they said there were 36 people on Zoom.
That's what I was going up there.
Can more people join the Zoom?
Wait, no, I think it ends at noon.
To sign up for the Zoom? To sign up for the Zoom?
No, that ended at noon. You can't sign up for Zoom anymore.
Oh, okay.
But me and Pam put our names down on the list over there. To sign up after.
Oh, no.
Yeah, you should. Jazari. Yeah, you should. Everybody on live, should Jazari go up there?
No.
Yeah, Jazari should go up there, right?
Go up there. No, I'm just here to record.
You thought he was gone? He's back. Let's go back in there, though. Okay, wait, hold on, breathe.
Somebody said, oh snap, drunk man, no shoes. Somebody said, oh snap, drunk man, no shoes.
Alright, it's been almost 13 hours. I've been up and out of here.
That's all that matters.
People don't understand, like, most of America are the reason, especially in Nebraska, that
I'm actually going to take off here shortly.
but that's where they're
I really thought you left. I thought you were done for the day.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Somebody said shared viewers coming. I told them I was going to end at 10. Somebody said shared viewers coming.
What do you mean?
They shared this somewhere else so that more people would watch, but I said I was going to end it at 10:45. Do you have a battery pack with you?
Yeah.
She said, yeah. It's not dying yet, but I'm just saying.
My phone's charging. I found it right now. I'll just take it off.
Somebody said, don't make fun of him. That's Cody. He's serious mental issues and needs mental help. I understand. Nobody was making fun of him. Well, we weren't. Yo, Khadijah.
We're trying. Honestly, I'm going up again. Bree's going up. Now
They
Caleb's
won't let
going
you
up.
go again.
Oh, really?
When Dom tried to go up and ask a question, they're like, you can't talk again.
What?
Yeah, they said I told you to sit mine down.
I zoomed in on one guy's face. He looks pissed.
Oh, yeah. I saw that shit. When you zoomed it up.
I'm alive?
You know I was at home watching. You know I was at home watching.
Somebody said Khadijah for the win. I know who he is. Mm-mm. No.
Again, body cancer ineffective in mitigating police contacts. Very ineffective unless being
All the time. Period. Like, not
like you normally do. We have conversations, you can make sense. Right now, I'm worried about what's going on. Using terminology, standing on the side, and not standing on the side in my way. Like, he wasn't like, I got that. But it's also socially awkward when I can. These twofold tactics or positions that are being proposed. We're experiencing a budget shortfall. Now is not the time to be fiscally irresponsible. There is also an effort to find trust with the police, especially among.
Anybody here, are you having any issues with Cody tonight? Is anybody having any issues
I'm here
with
as
Cody
press.
tonight?
What?
with Cody? Has he assaulted anybody that I should know about?
No.
Instead of finding body cams and their associated expenses, provide safe housing.
Did they make all the people with the drums go out?
No, they just went out to go make some noise outside.
Yeah, you should have seen their faces in there when they heard the drums. They were like,
I know. We get to. They were like. Do, 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 and they're like,
What your motives are
no, Linda, that's not him. Yep, people are still jamming outside. This is not ending, you guys. Like, this is... There's still like at least 30 people online waiting. And a couple more people signed up to talk.
I am a private citizen and a resident of Lincoln, Nebraska. I apologize, I do not feel comfortable sharing my physical address, but I live in North Lincoln. And I am here to share the concerns that you've heard for the hours before I've had the chance to testify. And I ask that the city council members halt the mayor's recommended budget because it fails to meet the beautifully worded but empty promises under the guise of the outcomes for this budget. I do not support the mayor's budget proposal because it does say that it's an estimated $12 million in budget cuts with sentiments that we all have to make sacrifices, and yet the Lincoln Police Department is still set to receive over $56 million with more money for more staff and more equipment, despite the ever clear demands that this is not what the community wants. The astronomical funding that is being allocated to LPD is unacceptable. And if you are genuine in your stated outcomes, namely providing a safe and healthy city, I would like you to note that those two issues, providing a safe and healthy city, are in the same paragraph in the vision and goals section. And I want to share with you because we've heard a lot of accounts on why it's important to divest money from police and put into community resources. But this is where our priorities lie in the current budget. Now remember, safe and healthy city, same paragraph. The budget is asked at $56.5 million to fund the Lincoln Police Department. While other areas like health, public health, the aging department take big cuts. For example, we have an FTE of 2.75 for public health educators. 2.75 educators, well, we have 281 officers. We have 2.75 community outreach specialists. And we have only 11 public health nurses. And this is just one example of the misplacement of our priorities with this budget. We cannot continue to funnel money into Lincoln Police Department when we know that the police do not prevent crime. They respond to it. Chief Leemeister even said that the reason why crime is going down in the city is not because of the police. It is because of the citizens. And we need to listen to the citizens now and halt the budget and review where the money is going. We already know that crime is linked to social issues like poverty, lack of social services, inequity in education, inequity in services, and inadequate funding for services that treat addiction to drugs and alcohol. There are so many issues within this budget that we need to revisit, so please halt the budget, listen to the people who have testified today, and we need to do better. Thank you for listening. I hope we do the right thing.
Thank you.
Next is Peter Segan on deck, Cal Harmon. Peter?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, cool. My name is Peter Steeken and I live here. I'm glad to be here, and I urge you to make this online testimony option permanent. You've got to halt the budget and begin the process of defunding the Lincoln Police Department. Don't match the mayor's dangerous investment, and if you can, you should reallocate those funds into the community in non-oppressive ways. Now, I'm just so encouraged tonight by all of the brave voices that have spoken. And I don't really know what I can add that hasn't been said, but yeah, we're not supposed to ask questions, but I wonder if someone can clear up why everybody's talking about body cameras and why are we even discussing it? Like, if it's for accountability, that's like totally bananas. There's already so many videos of black people, indigenous people, and people of color being murdered by the police. Does it really hold any of these murderers accountable? Why are body cameras even a talking point at this point? There's no fixing the police, there's no reforming the police, there's no training away their oppression. We need a different system. We need a system of compassion. We need restorative justice. Halt this budget, and let's all work towards abolishing police. Because if we don't, we'll never abolish white supremacy. It's going to take some time, and it's going to take a whole lot of work.
Next up, Cal Harmon, on deck, Dakota Altman.
Hello?
Cal?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. At this point, I know the council has heard all of the arguments against giving police more money to bring on more officers and provide body cameras. And I know the mayor's heard these calls too. Briefly, I just want to bring attention to one influencing factor in this budgetary process that has been touched on tonight, but has received very little scrutiny throughout these deliberations. In early 2015, the Lincoln Police Union gave Republican Andy Stebbing $30,000 shortly after he announced his campaign for mayor. As we know, Stebbing was defeated by Democratic incumbent Chris Bible. 1 year into his term, the police union gave Bible a $13,500 donation as, quote, a sign of civility. The police union seemed to wisen up the next time around, not picking a horse in the race until it was clear that the Democrat was going to win. The police union donated $25,000 to Mayor Gilbert Baird's campaign about a month before her election. The police union also gave City Council member Roy Christensen $1,500. Many have come to just accept this kind of election financing as the way things are. After all, it's completely legal. Unions that represent other jobs like nurses and teachers donate and endorse politicians all the time. However, nurses and teachers aren't in the streets discharging lethal chemical agents into peaceful demonstrations. They aren't throwing people to the concrete by their hair because some cuss words were thrown their way. Nor are teachers and nurses firing plastic coated metal bullets the size of golf balls into people's skulls. Nor are they throwing over 100 people into overcrowded jail cells in the midst of a viral pandemic because a protest, quote, leaned toward the potential of getting violent, end quote. A baffling justification for mass arrest that's somehow not even in the running for the most dystopian action taken by the police in this country this summer. On July 13th at the City-County Common meeting, Lancaster County Police Chief Terry Wagner said we need to, quote, keep politics out of law enforcement. It's worth noting that on July 22nd, just over a week later, Wagner was a special guest at the Lancaster County Republican Party. But I think Wagner gets it exactly backward. We don't need to keep politics out of law enforcement. We need to get law enforcement out of politics. Until then, no amount of promises or personal assurances will convince me that this money does not play a role in influencing our elected leaders' actions. I don't have any arguments to make that haven't been made on why the police don't need more money. I applaud and stand firmly with everyone that has raised their voice in opposition. Instead, I just want to take my last minute to address the people that are watching. There's a growing mass of people waking up to the injustices of this country, injustices that have been suffered by the poor and marginalized for decades. The COVID pandemic certainly didn't create these, but it has magnified and exacerbated them tenfold. Following the murder of George Floyd, protests broke out, and despite what the news may suggest, they have not stopped. People are coming together in unprecedented ways off of the streets too. This is happening here in Lincoln. There's a growing realization that maybe this country, the state, and the city aren't exactly as advertised. Maybe the only qualities we possess that are truly valued by our society are those which can be exploited. And if you feel this way and feel nearly paralyzed by it, just take a deep breath and just know you're far from alone. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm afraid that those of us who like to see the power stripped from the police may have lost this year's budgetary battle. But fortunately for our opposition, we were caught on our heels. But rest assured, we aren't going anywhere. Look at what has been mobilized in just a matter of months. Imagine where we're going to be in a year.
Time.
Plus, most of us are just too broke to move away, and travel's pretty limited right now anyway. I want to end with a slightly altered line from everyone's favorite 90s English pop group, Chumbawamba. We'll get knocked down, but we'll get up again. You're never going to keep us down. Black Lives Matter. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Dakota Altman. On deck, Erica Stewart, Finkenstead. Dakota? Dakota? I see you there, Dakota. Can you hear us?
Dakota, can you unmute?
We'll move on to Erica Stewart, and then I'll call Dakota back later. Erica Stewart? Erica? Erica, you there?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Erica Stewart Finkenstead, and I'm calling you to help the budget and defund the police. In response to the city's acceptance of the cost grant, City Council Member Roy Christensen said, quote, "Public safety is our number one responsibility for the year. Funding for additional officers helps the Lincoln Police Department deliver on its mission to promote a safe and secure community." End quote. A safe community is not one where police arrest, incarcerate, and kill Black and marginalized people. While many attribute police brutality to singular bad apples, the problem is not individual police officers. The problem is policing as systemic reinforcement of white supremacy. The problem is that police as an institution emerged from slave patrols in the South, made up of white citizens who caught and whipped their escaped slaves. Police today developed out of this context and continue to protect white people and wealth at the violent expense of others. LPD is not an exception. Lincoln residents have experienced excessive force at the hands of the police, both this summer and in the past. 3 years ago, LPD body slammed a resident, causing him to wake up in a pool of blood with a fractured shoulder. The 3 officers involved were wearing body cameras, but none were turned on until after the individual, Serena Pizia, was already on the ground and unconscious. The excessive force lawsuit was eventually settled last year by the city of Lincoln, meaning taxpayers ultimately paid the price instead of the city. If you are truly dedicated to protecting public safety, you cannot support a $50 million police department. Supporting the current budget proposal indicates your support for police entrenched in brutality and unconstrained power. Police violence will not change by small measures such as police cameras or more diversity training. Things will only fundamentally change if you change the system giving police power. This starts with drastically reducing the resources given to the police. I ask that you cut the police budget by 50%.
1 minute.
50% may seem shocking, but what's shocking is that we continue to see 1,000 Americans murdered each year by the police. And instead of putting an end to the murder, those in power simply create new methods in which to allow murders to happen. You as the City Council are endowed with unique power to enact change. Be proactive and defund the police, while simultaneously providing our community and individuals with the resources they need to thrive. The work on imagining the police and prison-free world has already been done. Look to any number of abolitionists: Mariama Kaba, Angela Davis, and Ruth Wilson and Roger Smith. The work has been done, and the decision is in your hands. Please be brave and be bold and choose to stand with the community before you and believe that a more peaceful world is possible. Thank you.
Up next is Kelly Seacrest. On deck is Hannah Klein. Dakota, if you can hear me, can you please reply in our chat so we know you're there?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
My name is Kelly Seacrest. I live in Lincoln. I was going to thank everyone, and I have thanked you in the past, but I actually want to make room and thank those who have spoken. And everyone at City Council should feel not tired or exhausted, but you should feel excited about the level of engagement, research, and passion that you're hearing from folks, because the amount of people here is a sign of a robust democracy, and if you support democracy, then you want even more people here speaking, and we should celebrate and expand access to this kind of engagement. I'm really here to just talk about the budget. I'm asking you to halt the budget for it reflects an investment in control and punishment and white supremacy. The budget comes at the expense of people's well-being and lives, particularly Black people, Indigenous people, and other people of color, as well as disabled people and houseless people, as well as people with mental health issues. I was outside and we're having lots of conversations, and someone said, you all, in terms of you all in the City Council, are afraid of the police for political reasons, and we, as in protesters, are afraid of the police for personal reasons. I understand that the policing as an institution is powerful, but that does not make them just or necessary. I think you've heard a lot of testimony on the history of policing. It's essentially interconnectedness with white supremacy. I won't go into details there, but I think that the fact that the mayor took a large amount from the police union obviously sways your judgment on this issue. Why should other community services and other city unionized workers take cuts in order to continue to increase the police budget, especially after all you've heard, not just of the local testimony tonight, but amidst a national and global movement for Black lives? We are also in a pandemic. We're in multiple crises, and I can tell you for one thing for sure. No police officer is going to fix or solve or help someone who's infected by COVID or sick. They're not going to help anyone who's facing evictions or has been evicted. They're not going to help anyone who's unemployed or underemployed, or anyone who's grieving from all the losses that they've experienced this year. I'd also like to add that prisons are overcrowded at 151% capacity, and a state of emergency has been declared. In this context, it is unacceptable to increase the police budget. Why can't we have a community invested in care and justice and not control and punishment? The answer is actually we can. We can create, remake, unmake, and imagine and build the kind of world we want to see. And we've seen it. And we're seeing it. Have you been outside? People are outside, they're in community, they're feeding each other, they're supporting each other, and they're caring for each other. People can and are building communities based on care, and you can be part of that creation by answering the millions of voices, not just the voices here in Lincoln, that are demanding for justice and care, demanding a better world. Halt the budget, defund the police, Black Lives Matter.
Yes.
Next, Hannah Clemming. On deck, Brandon Meismer. Hannah? Hannah, are you there? Hannah, can you unmute your mic? Okay, I'll call Hannah back later. Brandon Meismer, are you there? Brandon Meismer? Brandon?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
There you go. All right, sorry, I kept saying I was being muted there. All right, first off, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to comment remotely. Obviously, there's an ongoing health crisis, and as others have noted, accessibility issues, so this is really great. Personally, I've been blessed to serve people of Lincoln from all its neighborhoods, as well as its surrounding communities as a paramedic for more than a decade. But the unorthodox schedule that comes with that position can be kind of a challenge when it comes to civil engagement. So I guess you continue to offer this into the future for everyone in order to engage in these matters. Of course, while we're all here tonight, the excitement, for lack of a better term, 2020 has led us to deep reflection and introspection for many of us. And it's really become apparent that we're at a crossroads. Nothing is forcing us to maintain existing and outdated paradigms, and it's up to us to decide what defines success, both as individuals and as a society and community as a whole. We have what I believe is a rare opportunity to take the lessons learned during the darkness of this year and forge beacons of hope that will last into the future. At current, over 1/5 of the proposed budget is allocated toward policing. It's up to us as a community to decide if this is the best use of funds to achieve our definition of what we want to be as a successful society. Is this really the best use of funds to create opportunity and prosperity, not only for those of us speaking and watching today, but for future generations in the city that we love? Will spending 20+% of the budget lead to success for our community? We know that an enormous share of criminality can be directly traced to matters such as mental health and socioeconomic desperation. The terrible truth is it's not a stretch to see that these issues are not going to get any better anytime soon as a result of this health and economic crisis we're facing, especially in light of the nearly 30 million, that's million with an M, pending evictions nationwide.
1 minute.
Hey, 20% of the city's expenditures into reactionary policing truly are best use of funds? Are they reducing criminality or simply punishing it? If you agree that that's really the best use of our money, I implore you to take a moment and reflect on what that means about your faith in the citizens you supposedly represent, or who's paying your paycheck, of course, for some council members. The next time you meet with a constituent, I ask you to take a moment, look into their eyes and consider whether an increased police presence is the best way to benefit their future and aid in their success in life. I believe in this city. We've heard from dozens of others this evening who do. But do you, our own city councilmen and women, believe in Lincoln? Black Lives Matter. Thank you.
Next up, Sarah Al-Helfi Leon. Sarah?
Hello, my name, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, my name is Sarah Hoffman. I'm here against the proposed city budget. I don't think that we should give any more money to the LBD. I also think body cams will not help out at all. The evidence shows this time and time again. And I just echo what everyone else has said. And yes, and I just do not think that it will be beneficial. I think reallocating the funds within the community is something that we need to do if we really truly want to have a safer community for Lincoln. I think Lincoln has an amazing opportunity to be a safer city, but I do not see that with funding or adding more funds to the police. We can always be better. And then if salary, if police doesn't prevent crime, they show up after it happens. Crime prevention starts with funding social programs and creating opportunity. I stand with everyone who voiced their concerns today and halt the budget and Black Lives Matter.
Next up, Rosalind Kitchler. And we're going to call back Dakota Altman. Rosalind?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. My name is Rosalind Kitchler. I'm a resident of Lincoln living at 1414 C Street. I thank the council members for staying late to listen so late into the night. I apologize if this testimony is repetitive, but the stakes are simply too high to risk you, the city council, for missing this point. I stand with the other protesters speaking today. I am speaking before the city council for the third time since June to voice my opposition to the budget. I am here now to urge the council members to halt the Lincoln City budget. Specifically, I'm opposed to the increased funding for the Lincoln Police Department. The mayor has already accepted a federal COPS grant worth $500,000, but the COPS grant is not free money. Lincoln taxpayers are required to match the grant. After 3 years, the new officers initially funded by the grant will stop receiving grant funding and require further city budget dollars. On top of this, the proposed budget further increases funding to the Lincoln Police Department in order to fund body cameras and 2 new officers to manage these cameras. With all these increases to LPD funding, the police account for a full 20% of the budget. Many other needed social services are robbed by the bloated police budget. This funding decision is only more fiscally irresponsible and morally reprehensible during an ongoing pandemic that asks all other city services to do without. Instead of increasing funding to the police, I ask the city council to imagine a city that no longer requires police. With fully funded social services that protect our most vulnerable residents, Lincoln could be that city. As decades of sociological research show, the safest neighborhoods have the most resources, not the most policing. Increasing the LPD budget will only increase surveillance and violence in Black, Indigenous, and other communities of color. More police officers only creates more opportunities for police violence. And body cameras do not disrupt police violence. The police murdered George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Philando Castile, and Tamir Rice while on camera. This is only well-known victims. Similarly, a 2017 study conducted by the DC Mayor's scientific team using a randomized control design, the gold standard of scientific research, found body cameras created no significant changes in police behavior. As long as police continue to be allowed to use force, it will pose a deadly threat to Black residents and other residents of color. Moreover, I doubt the intentions of the mayor. During her election, she received $25,000 from the Lincoln Police Union. Is the mayor increasing LPD funding to guarantee an even bigger contribution to her next campaign? With the mayor potentially in LPD's pocket, Lincoln residents look towards you, our city council, to act justly by voting against the budget. For the past 2 months, protesters across Lincoln came together to demand change in our city, starting with defunding the police. Like millions of others across the country, protesters were spurred to action by the recent police murder of George Floyd. However, the nationwide call to defund the police is not an oversized reaction to a single murder, but rather a long overdue reckoning with an inherently racist system. We are mistaken when we act as if police violence is exceptional. While it may be exceptional when used against white communities, it is the norm for Black communities and other communities of color. We must not forget modern policing began in the 1800s in the form of Southern slave patrols. The slave patrols provided the model for early police departments in large northern cities, which sought to control their increasing immigrant populations. Policing has never been and cannot ever be race neutral. The only effective way to prevent continued violence against Black residents and other residents of color is to defund the Lincoln Police. I beg City Council members to listen to the voices of their residents. As should be resoundingly clear from the continued protests in Lincoln, residents do not want meaningless reforms that channel even more money into
Did we lose her?
I'm not sure. Rosalind?
She was going over.
Her time is up. Her time is up.
Let's go one more and then we can take a break.
Hannah Klein?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Cool. 1 second. Hi, my name is Hannah Clemmy. I will not be sharing my address today. I'm calling in to testify and demand that you halt the city budget, as there are so many concerns the community has with the proposal. As a resident of this community, I want to put pressure on you all to really listen to the people who experienced the effects of this budget firsthand, and to put them first, and also those affected that don't have the privilege or means to speak today. You serve us, we are your boss, and human rights and the safety of black and brown lives should not have to be up for debate. I know that LPD is already receiving a grant from the mayor, and I ask that you listen to us and do everything in your power to ensure that the grant is not matched with more money. More money to the police, or any money at all for that matter, means upholding a system of white supremacy. I ask that you oppose the funding of more body cams for police and the additional hiring of police officers to manage these body cams. As we've seen time and time again, they don't prevent police brutality. After witnessing the violence of police firsthand in my own city, I do not trust LPD cops to be responsible and diligent about even using these cameras correctly. These cops do not make people feel safe, and they have made it clear that they do not serve the people, they do not protect us, and I don't trust them. Body cameras are ineffective and an irresponsible allocation for funds. After hearing firsthand accounts from my friends who were violently arrested during the peaceful protest in Omaha recently, it makes me upset to know that much worse goes on behind closed doors that we don't even hear about. I also demand that we put funding towards an alternate method of mental health response. As we know, the police have not been around that long in the scheme of things. There's no reason we can't reimagine mental health care and the response to emergencies in our community rather than having the police partner up with mental health services. We are in the middle of a global pandemic. Many people are experiencing job loss, loss of family members, and other trauma. People are in distress, ignore and pretend it's not happening. We must address the mental health crisis that goes along with this pandemic on top of other issues people are already dealing with before COVID-19.
1 minute.
We must also acknowledge that black and brown families are being hit harder than anyone else right now, and are also the ones targeted by police the most. How are they supposed to feel safe calling the police during a moment of crisis? We must build a community that takes care of one another. We are all human and we must do better. Thank you for your time. Defund LPD, halt the budget, and Black Lives Matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Should we take a 5-minute break? Okay, we're going to recess for 5 minutes.
No, I'm good. I'm getting ready to take off too.
Okay.
So.
Well, hey, you know, if you ever want to use it, by all means, just.
Thank you. If what?
Like when, excuse me.
Yeah, I was walking this way.
Stretch my legs a little bit.
Yeah.
Is it loud here in the chamber too? Are the speakers really loud in here?
How long y'all think this is gonna last?
Well, is it the one on the TV? Yeah.
No, it's not over. They're taking a
Let
break.
everybody know that. Come back and speak. There's still 15 people left in the Zoom, so if they want to come back and speak. How many minutes
are those people
getting? Like 3 minutes? 3 minutes.
They could speak for a second time.
No, you can't speak twice.
Okay, I was gonna go grab everyone inside. I was gonna go grab everyone outside and be like, hey, you could speak for a second time. Y'all get your class. Everything here.
No, I'm getting ready to go. I have to work at 7 a.m.
Me too.
You gotta be speaking, right?
All right, but I'm gonna take off. I'll probably watch later. We'll watch the YouTube one they have.
Sorry.
Playing around.
No, we're gonna be here all day.
I didn't prep for that. I didn't realize, like, until I showed up and this is what was going on. When Kadeja was out there, like, we'll be here all night. I was like,
All night. All night. It's like when your pastor's like, it's like, oh, I'm not gonna keep you too long. 4 hours later. It's like,
yeah.
go on. Let him speak. Like, no, sir.
I'm gonna go grab snacks. Y'all want anything?
Can you get Capri Sun? I'm good.
Capri Sun.
Huh?
wow. Wonderful testimonies. I'm going to go ahead and end the live stream now. You guys can watch the rest on the... Good, how are you? You guys can watch the rest on the YouTube channel. Theirs, because they're also streaming it. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I got to go home and take a shower and get ready for bed. So thank you guys so much. Follow Qualdom Creations if you want to support us so that we can keep doing this. If I didn't have a full-time job, I'd be here all night until it was over, but can't do that. Have to be responsible. I'll give you guys one more look outside. They're cleaning up. We can do this all day or night. If it's Facebook Pay, you'll have to send it to my personal one. What YouTube channel? I usually try to upload high quality versions of the events on our YouTube channel. Just search Qualdom Creations and it'll be the same logo, the crown with the halo. But follow this page on Facebook, Instagram, everything is at Qualdom Creations. So thank you guys so much for watching. The drummer's been out here for hours. All right, I love you guys. Good night.